You know, we all have this tendency to judge others. We judge others for their looks. We judge others for their choices. We judge others for their beliefs. But you know what? Behind that judgment, behind that prejudice, there is always a story. There is always a reason. Today, let us look at a story from the past that will teach us a valuable lesson about judging others. Now, after a few months, the king goes to a tailor and says, "I want you to make a beautiful, exquisite gown for my queen." Everyone has their own uniqueness. Everyone has their own story. The king made a mistake. He wanted to get rid of the judgments of others, so he made a law that everyone should be judged. Everyone should be equal. Let the light of wisdom illuminate your faces, illuminate your hearts, and let the light of compassion guide your next steps. Namaskar. But in doing so, he forgot that there is always an exception for the one who makes the rule. That is your story, that is your uniqueness, and that is what makes you beautiful. The tailor takes the king's money and starts selecting the material. He selects a beautiful, bright red cloth. The king stops him and says, "No, I want my wife to look beautiful, not the cloth. Why don't you select a different color?" The tailor gets angry and says, "Your Majesty, how can you talk like this? Don't you know everyone wears a veil? Your wife is no different from other women. She has the right to look beautiful." The king is shocked. He had never thought about it this way. He says, "You are right, tailor. I'm sorry, once upon a time in a kingdom far, far away, there lived a king. And this king was weird." He tells the sage about his problem. He says, "Sage, I'm tired of being judged." But you know what? Behind that judgment, behind that prejudice, there is always a story. There is always a reason. So next time you judge someone, next time you make fun of someone, remember this story, remember the tailor, and don't be that king. Be the tailor, question your beliefs, question your choices, and always try to understand the other person's point of view. Only then will you become wiser. Only then will you become more compassionate. And that is the essence of life. I'm tired of people making fun of me. Is there any solution to my problem? The sage looks at the king and then says, "My king, there is a solution to your problem, but you'll have to do something that most people won't do." The king asks, "What is it, sage?" "Tell me, please." The sage says, "You must issue a decree. You must make a law that everyone in your kingdom, men, women, young, old, everyone should wear a veil when they go out in public." The king is shocked. He says, "But why, sage? What does wearing a veil have to do with getting rid of pimples?" The sage says, "My king, you want to change the way people see you. Well, change the way you see others. If everyone is covered, if everyone is the same, no one will be judged by their looks. Everyone will be equal." The king thinks about it and he says, "You are right, sage. That is the only way." And so he issues a decree that everyone in the kingdom should wear a veil when they go out in public. You know, whenever he went out in public, he would wear a veil that covered his entire face. People couldn't see his face. They couldn't see his eyes. And so people started judging him. People started talking about him. Some said the king had lost his mind. Others said the king was hiding his face because he was ashamed of the way he looked. But the truth was the king was hiding his face because he had a really bad case of acne. You know, those pimples, those zits that all of us get, especially teenagers, they can be very, very bad sometimes. And the king had tried everything to get rid of them, but nothing worked. Now, one day the king goes to meet a sage. At first, people were confused, but gradually everyone started wearing the veil. You know, when we force others to follow rules, when we force others to conform, we forget that everyone is an individual. We often judge others for the way they look, for the choices they make, for the clothes they wear, for the food they eat, for the language they speak, for their religion. So take care, friends.